Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. Welcome back to the MyFootballWriter podcast, and welcome back to more Norwich City misery. My name is Jack Wright. I'm joined by Will Grant and Henry Miller. We're going to do a bit of a debrief on what was another terrible opening day for the Canaries as Alex Neil's Millwall outmuscled Manning's men on what was a pretty dire game week one. Before we dig into the bones of what was quite a very weird performance, all things considered, guys, how are you both?
Yeah, all good, thank you. All good, thank you. Yeah, life's treating me well at the minute, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm all good. My euphoria and excitement pre-game to the game on Saturday was absolutely through the roof. I was buzzing. I got a new haircut. It was such a lovely day. Got a lovely meal beforehand, and then I went to the game, and then it went to crap. So obviously that wasn't great, but it's still early doors. But overall, I'm generally good, mate. How about yourself, Jack?
Yeah, otherwise fine. I think sort of weirdly was optimistic for the season, and probably like 82 minutes at 1-1, you'd kind of think, oh, a draw on the opening day against Millwall, that's a good result. So yeah, Macaulay Langstaff's winner knocked the stuffing out of me a little bit. And let's not forget that's Millwall's first win in Norfolk since 1968. So good on them. Hopefully there's no other team that will break a long streak of, not beating us this campaign. But anyway, let's not talk about them. Let's talk about us. Let's talk about the 2-1 loss. Obviously, there's lots of sort of chatter online about various different systems, various different players being brought in. Let's not forget that this is match 1 of 46 in a huge long season, in which Liam Manning is still very much not only embedding his system, but also embedding a whole raft of new players. And I don't want to, start the ball rolling with negativity. I want to start the ball rolling with some positivity, because I think from analysing that game, like I said, I think take away that goal late on, a 1-1 draw, decent enough. I thought Darling looked pretty good at times. I thought Sargent was obviously fantastic. I thought Topic looked really decent in his little cameos, sort of in the first half before he got taken off. What do you guys think? What were the sort of silver linings from this otherwise quite irritatingly disappointing result?
I think for me, one of the silver linings is the amount of praise that Jose Cordoba's getting. I thought last season, as it went on, he got progressively worse. I remember being at the Den for that Millwall game, and he was one of the worst players on the pitch for sure. So the fact that he's had a summer now, and the arrivals of Medic and Darling will only help his game improve as well. I think, Cordoba has to be given a lot of credit there, because, this season almost feels a bit make or break for him. And if we are going with that back three, it would make sense to give him the third centre back slot. So hopefully those performances can either improve or carry on how they are, and hopefully he can have a good season. But for me, that's my silver lining from the game.
Yeah, I really do agree with both of you there. I probably would have picked out the same players as well. As Henry said, it felt like a big game for Kotoba, actually, because it felt like his pre-season was maybe a bit unconvincing. Obviously, as well, last year as well wasn't great from him either. But I think he showcased in that game that he's got some really good qualities. But I think the next thing for Jose is just to keep on building on it, because he'll have some really tough games coming up. Obviously, going away to Portsmouth is a very, very tough game as well. And then obviously playing after that against Barrow as well is going to be very difficult for him as well. Two very forward-thinking and quite direct sides, really. And I think those teams will definitely test his kind of almost like his choices in terms of when to kind of sit back or when to be aggressive. So I think those games will probably tell us more about his start to the season. But I think overall for Jose, a very good start as well. I thought Sargent was probably Norwich's best player on the pitch by a country mile. Maybe as well actually on across both sides as well. I just think the way how he connected the team from defence to attack was very, very promising, because if you think about it, the ball progression from midfield to attack was quite limited. So I think he definitely scrapped off those long balls well. I do think maybe at times Sarge could have maybe been a bit more sharper in terms of running the flanks a bit more frequently to try and get us more territory, as I think we were quite leggy across the whole game, especially second half. But yeah, I thought Sargent looked very, very sharp, and it's almost like, for me, the longer which we can try and keep him this month is a very good scenario for us. But yeah, he could also be gone tomorrow. So at the same time, I won't get ahead of myself too much. But for me, yeah, I thought Sargent for me was definitely our best player.
And just coming in on that Sargent point as well, this might sound ridiculous because it was a deflection, but I think only one player could have scored that goal for Norwich, and it was Josh Sargent. Any single team he's been in, even when he was quite poor when we were in the Premier League, everyone always knew what you get with Sargent. He gives 110% and he runs his socks off. How many other players in that Norwich team would have had the tenacity to just keep on chasing the keeper down, keep on badgering the keeper until eventually it pays off? If you described that goal before the game and said, right, what Norwich player scored it, everyone would have said Josh Sargent. So again, that shows how important it is.
Well, it wasn't going to be Shane Duffy, was it? He wasn't even on the pitch. There you go, Shane. Yeah, I mean, in terms of other players that were fantastic, I thought Jacob Wright was, as per usual, really sort of controlled and comfortable in the middle. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously individual performances that probably weren't up to scratch. Forson, bless him, obviously has a hamstring injury now. I think really struggled in that first half to link up midfield to attack. I think Medic, bless him, he needs a couple of games in English football just to find his feet. Although he's big and tall, he looks a little bit off the pace, and maybe needs, a bit of a kind of pointing in the right direction, because there was a couple of times where I think he was sort of pinpointed for some chances. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the positivity for Norwich, I think on the whole, you kind of have to say that Millwall deserved that win, and they probably could have won by 3-1 if it wasn't for Femi Aziz's horror miss in the second half. That was a team that was Alex Neil led, organised, effective, knew exactly what they wanted to do, sat deep and absorbed the pressure when we had possession, and then utilised those two fullbacks in Doherty and Kramer, who were just, sensational all afternoon. And I think Alex Neil probably looked at the style that we were going to play, 5 at the back. There'll be gaps in that sort of channel between centre-backs and fullbacks. Do you think that, Manning should have read how the game was going and tried to adapt accordingly? Or how do you think he could have changed it up to adapt to how Millwall were attacking and at times dominating the game?
I think the big talking point is, you mentioned there, Kramer, just how easy it was for him and the other winger as well, just to get in behind. Whether we all know how much Jeffrey Schlupp loves to attack, just from seeing him at both Leicester and Crystal Palace. So had we have then changed into a back four, maybe that would have made us more rigid and more defensively sound and compact. But the fact that we still wanted Jeffrey Schlupp up that high, it was our Achilles heel, really. It sort of allowed them to create those chances and find that space in behind. So, yeah, maybe a positional change. But, of course, I reckon you'll always say that playing a back three or back five. Yes, it's a very attacking formation and Norwich can reap the rewards for that. But when it doesn't go well, you are prone to conceding chances and thus conceding goals as well. So, I know it's the easy way out. But, yeah, probably just shaping it into a back four during the game.
Yeah, I think the more relevant thing for me was during those Millwall goals, and probably actually throughout the second half, was that we saw some similar trends to last season again, in the sense where during those really important moments of the game, players were switching off again and making quite naive errors and kind of choices of judgment. And I think that's very, very important in this league, especially against Millwall, because they are a team who are very, very streetwise and also very very kind of brainy in the sense of the runs to make and kind of how to occupy defenders. And I just think, although we had like an extra man on the pitch, I just felt like the communication between the three defenders probably wasn't up to the level. And maybe as well, as the game went on as well, I think that especially the whole back line, they just seemed to tire really, really quickly as well. I even saw it was even probably the amount of things as well, for example, where it'd probably be like the 70th minute, for example, and Mill would probably play like a long ball over the top, and normally after you had it clear, you would try and get more territory up the pitch, but instead we kind of almost sat off that to an extent and just chose to sit deep. And I think for me that kind of demonstrated where our kind of levels of fitness are at the minute as well. Look, I know it wasn't an ideal pre-season for Manning to an extent, because obviously it was kind of a schedule which was probably constructed by JHT. So obviously that did bring some challenges, but I generally just think our application and our ability just to be a bit more streetwise in those moments, it still isn't there. I know it's still very early days, but you would have liked to have thought that that the players would have maybe shown a bit more level-headedness to try and see out those situations for me. A point as well, which I also want to make as well. I'm not convinced about the profiles of centre halves we have. It feels like we've got quite a lot of similar players in the sense that Medic, Duffy, and probably also as well Darlin to an extent. A lot of their probably best strengths are probably like box defending, whereas I'm not quite convinced we actually have a centre half who's kind of got that bit of recovery pace to their game. And I feel like we could see a very, very reoccurring topic this season where teams will play longer and try and get in behind Medic and Cordoba to try and exploit the lack of pace. And for me, if you look at our defence, you've got McConville, obviously Hills, Duffy, and those centre halves who played on Monday Saturday as well. And those guys aren't those kind of profiles where they're quite athletic to an extent. So I think Notch got to be careful that they don't try and be a bit too passive in those moments, because I don't think they've got the personnel to like try and play high or stuff like that. So they've got to be a bit more streetwise, because they ain't got that like pace in the back line there.
Yeah, I remember when we had a pacey centre back in Ben Godfrey. Maybe we don't talk about him anymore, but I don't know. We've still got time in the window. We've still probably got cash. We're probably going to sell Duffy for £20 million. So no, we're not. That would be nice.
And as well, it was time for him to move on, but our paciest centre back I've seen in recent years is just signed for Hibernian.
Yeah. The original big dog, other than you, obviously. Big up Hibs. Conor Handley really did have a yard of pace on him. Everybody who thought he was slow, they're wrong. I mean, in terms of sort of Millwall's performance, I think as well, what you've also got to look at is the fact that they probably should have been down to 10 men, given that in the first minute, Jake Cooper ripped the shirt off Sargent's back and then had another foul. That probably is, 2 yellows. Whether it would have impacted the game or not, I'd probably beg to differ. I'd probably think that Millwall would have tactically seen it out. But Shall we go into a bit more depth on the subject matter that everyone on the internet loves to talk about, which is the back 3/5? Now, Liam Manning, he's obviously a highly qualified football coach who's worked for many different clubs over many different years, got all of his coaching badges. But maybe he should listen to all of Norfolk, who is telling him to abandon this back 3 and back 5 because it doesn't work. I think obviously it is one of these sort of tactical tweaks where when it works and when it pays off, it's some sort of Barcelona-esque Guardiola magic, and when it doesn't work, we should go back to traditions, and we should have two big ones up top, and we should just win games 1-0. Do you see Manning persisting with the back 3, and how much patience do you think us Norwich fans are going to have with this defensive system?
I think it all depends, really. I think it's all about the personnel and the type of players you've got playing wing back. I hate to do this to you chaps, but if you cast your mind back to the first season under Chris Hughton, we had Stephen Whittaker on the right flank, who was one of the most attacking fullbacks I've ever seen. And on the left flank, we had Javier Garrido, who wasn't particularly attacking. But that complements each other well, because then you can shift over during the game. Having Jack Stacey and Jeffrey Schlupp, they're both going to attack. And when they're both attacking, it leaves us so vulnerable. So maybe someone who's like Kellen Fisher, someone who is that brute in a tackle, while still being quite nimble at the same time. Maybe him and Schlupp would work well together. Or maybe, I know he fancies Ben Cresceni at centre-back as well occasionally. But even if someone like him was on the right and on the left, and allowed Jack Stacey to bomb forward, maybe that would be better. I just think that Stacey last season was instrumental to creating a lot of the attacks and a lot of the moves going forward. So him playing with Jeffrey Schlupp could potentially juxtapose itself, really. So maybe it's more about the personnel as to why the system might have a shortcoming.
Yeah, I think although it's so early, I definitely do have some early concerns about it. I just think the profiling of the squads playing it in a 5-back is it's a bit weak, really, and I just don't really understand some of the combinations at all. I think especially as well, if I was to look at the right-hand side, especially defensively, for example, and you've got Jack Stacey, who probably isn't the most composed defender, and you've also got Jakovic there as well, and he looked very, very slow, especially with back to goal, stuff like that as well. And I just would worry about that kind of partnership, especially playing away at some quite high-octane away grounds and stuff like that, and teams who have got quite real tricky wingers as well. I think that's one combination which I'm worried about as well. But I think generally with this back 5 stuff for me is just the issue which I had with it really was that more so on the ball, really, because we had the likes of Emmanuel Forson and Ante Cernach, both in those kind of 2-10 positions, if you will. And those guys have got to be shown for the ball more often. I think they did okay in the first half an hour of the game, but I think from then on, both of them were just kind of almost just were kind of ghosts in the game, really. I think both of them didn't show enough courage to try and get on the ball. And I think when both of those players are almost highlighted from the ball, it then forces you to play out wide to the likes of Jeffrey Schlupp and Jack Stacey. And albeit Stacey did have a very, very good record last season at getting some assists for us, it still feels like his end product is quite limited for me. And then you also go to the left-hand side as well with Jeffrey Schlupp, a player that hasn't played a lot of football in the last few weeks as well. And I think that just kind of set the tone for quite a hard watch for me, really. There wasn't much of creative sources there at all, really. I think we actually looked our most dangerous actually from long balls when either Darling or Medic went long into Sargent, and then he could maybe spin away from a defender. But then again, that's quite like unsustainable, really. Like, I think you have to show a bit more patterns, a bit more courage on the ball. I know patterns take time, and I think that was definitely one of my main worries going into this season. That's why I thought maybe it might be quite a slow start because we just kind of like lack those partnerships and connections, really. But I think one thing you can do, I think, and one thing which is very effective in a back three, I think one thing for me especially is what I said earlier about having quite a very effective centre half, a guy that's got very, very good recovery speed. Sorry, at the back. I think that's very, very important. And if I'm being honest with you guys, I wouldn't be against us go back into the window to try and get one. I think individually, the likes of McConville, Hills, and those three centre halves that played on Saturday, I think all of those guys are good defenders. But I just think we need someone just to kind of make us a bit more balanced at the back there as well. And one thing as well, which Ian Mann said during pre-season as well, we need genuine pace outlets there as well. And I know Ante Serdac and Forson, they can both provide some nice turns on the ball and they can get us in the right direction. I think you need someone there that's just got the capability, almost like Sainz to an extent, where he can take the ball from deep and just try and create some carnage, really. I think Matthias Viscarton could be that guy for us. I really do, but it just depends kind of how ready he is to kind of step up for the team at the minute as well. I've just got quite a lot of alarm bells with this system. I just don't think as well. I think obviously if Sarge goes as well for me, because I see Ante Serdac being successful as that sole nine in that system. I'm really not sure, guys. I'm really not really. And then that just leads to me thinking that if Sargent does go and then Ante plays as that nine, I just don't think this back three system will have much legs really to kind of go on. So I probably would have to guess that I think we might go to back four, maybe as quick as next month. Really, to be honest with you, I just don't think really it's got the legs to succeed really. And then again, as I've said, I feel like I've said it so many times now as well. Like, when was the last time we actually won a game in a free back? You know what I mean? Like, I can't even. I think in my Norwich City life, I'm sure that there'll be some of you in the comment section, or even online as well. Just help me out. Like, I started supporting Norwich in about 2008, and I generally cannot remember the time when we started the game in a free back and we actually won the game. So if anyone can help me out, please do. But it just generally feels like, even like historically, that like it just doesn't work. So sorry for my my long rant there. Really, I know it's so early, but I've just got some real alarm bells with it.
A Will Grant rant, if you will. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my kind of thoughts on it are, you look at the two goals really. The first one from Negley, somehow I think it was Kramer out on our left-hand side. Jeffrey Schlupp was jogging back, and then sort of by the time the goal went in, was sort of in defensive midfield on the edge of the box. Surely he should be the one out wide, cutting that cross out, a la this, defensive 5-back, 3-back system. For Macaulay Langstaff, as you said, Will, we were playing such a high line. Even when Langstaff was through, I thought he could have squared it to Ivanovic. Either way, he had two, chances. And I think Stacey was still on the pitch by that point, but there was no, fullback at all. It was just the centre backs on their own, sort of looking at each other, thinking, I don't know what to do. Poor Kovacevic, should he have come out? Should he have stayed on his line? I think, it's a good finish from an experienced forward. But again, I think there are gaps emerging in that back three, back five. It's a question of whether it just requires a bit of tinkering, or if it's kind of just trying to test the waters to see what's best based on the players that we have. I think unless we win 6 on the bounce with a 3-5 back, even if we drop points, if we have loads of draws, and if we lose any game moving forwards with a back 3/5, whatever, fans are always going to point at that throughout the rest of the season as the problem. Do I care if it works? I care if we win, like everyone. I think it's quite fun. I think it's quite interesting. I think it's something different. But if we persist with this defensive system and we don't get results, and Manning gets the chop, I'm not suggesting Liam Manning's going to get sacked. Not game week 1, but I'm just saying that if he persists with this system and gets sacked, then that's telling. William.
And one thing I also want to say as well is that we had a lot of communication from the club as well during the off-season saying, "Oh, Manning is a very adaptable coach." But I think half the ground could have probably have told you during that second half that it wasn't working whatsoever, and yet we still went with it. And I think that for me is where if they're communicating to us that he's a very very adaptable head coach, I mean, surely you have to try and think there if it's not working, I guarantee you. If that's Alex Neil managing Norwich, I guarantee you he probably changes his system probably in the last half an hour of the game. I just generally just genuinely as well. I think there was just so many people that I could see that we actually needed genuine pace on each wing just to try and cause a problem, because Schlupp and Stacey they just didn't give us enough quality at all really, and then centrally as well there was nothing there. I think I can't even remember I think I checked on FootMob, and it said that we had about 13 shots during the game, but it felt like we had about 2, genuinely. So yeah, I just think I want to see Manning be a bit more bolder with his subs as well. I know it's still so early, but there's just moments in games where half the ground could just tell it's not working, and yet we stay with it. Our weakness was at defence, and we allowed to play it for the whole 90 minutes.
I tell you what, let's take a moment just to, we are so back, ladies and gentlemen. We have played one match and we are all whinging about the style of play. We are so back. And I'll tell you who's also back. The Fat Cat and Canary as our proud sponsors of the MFW podcast. Do you like how I weaseled that one in?
Good.
Weasel, a cat. Of course, everyone's favourite fine drinking establishment on the way to Carrow Road. Forget the Queen of Iceni when you've got the Fat Cat and Canary. Do pop in for a pint and a pork pie. I'm sure they do pork pies. If they don't do pork pies, do them now. Yes, thank you so much for being our lovely sponsors, and do keep on supporting us, and obviously, yes, please all go and visit this fantastic, wonderful pub. Anyway, as William alluded to in terms of our sort of lack of shots or perceived lack of shots, our one goal came from the most fortuitous, well-earned deflections, but the most silly, hilarious goal you've ever seen. I didn't celebrate the goal. I just laughed. I just sat there and laughed for probably about 2 minutes because it was just the silliest thing I've ever seen, but I loved it. As we've kind of all alluded to, Sarge was on the pace, on the ball, was fighting for every chance, was doing the best that he could given the system. 2 sort of questions, really. How doomed are we without him? Of which the answer is probably quite bad. And just a more specific one on the goalkeeper, Bender, who obviously had a shaky game. Sarge could sense that by chasing down the goal kick. I think they said in the commentary the last time that Bender started a match was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago for Peterborough in the Championship. So this is a goalkeeper who hasn't got very many senior minutes under his belt. Do you think that probably should have been taken into account in the tactics? I'm not saying we should have just tried to shoot from a ridiculous angle, but Topic tried it and he had a couple of good opportunities. Do you not think that kind of frailty was perhaps something we should have preyed on?
It's sort of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, really, isn't it? If a keeper hasn't started for that long, you never really know how good they are. And Bender didn't seem that bad, I thought, in the game. Yes, he obviously conceded that pretty bizarre goal to Josh Sargent, but I guarantee you Vladan Kovacevic will do similar this season just because of how high our line is that we play. We've seen it in pre-season. He's very much a goalkeeper who loves to use his feet and play it out from the back. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see similar with him this season. I think in terms of Sargent, sort of similar to what I said earlier on in the podcast, that goal epitomizes everything Josh Sargent is all about. So if we were to lose him, it would be a big portion of our game that we've lost. I think the longer it goes on, the likelier it is that he stays, not necessarily because he's chomping at the bit to play in yellow and green. I don't think that's the case. I just think it'll get to a stage where Norwich haven't had an offer come in that they deem acceptable or that Josh Sargent would like to go to. And I think maybe he could stay until January. Who knows? But yeah, without him, certainly after that Millwall display, it does look relatively bleak as to what chances we can create. But look, someone else we touched on earlier in the podcast, Matthias Kvistgården, I think he looked quite positive when he came on. So having someone like him as well could maybe sort of fill that void if Josh Sargent was to depart. And I still personally really rate Antti Sienats as well. So I don't necessarily think it would be the end of the world, but it would be a huge loss to Norwich, and that's unquestionable.
Yeah, I think Sarge will be a massive blow if he does decide to leave. I think that's obvious. He's just that all-round striker, really, where he scores your goals, but more so as well, just his general play is outstanding. And I think, obviously, if he does leave, that leaves you with Ante Cernac. It also leaves you maybe with Makama, and it also leaves you, obviously, with Kvistgården, so they can all play there, really. But I think for me is will we find a replacement? Also a very good question as well. Obviously, I don't know the answer to that as of yet, to be honest with you. But I think if we do decide to persist with Cernac in that 9 position, I think that's where Man is definitely going to earn his paycheck for us, really, because I just can't envisage a world where Ante does something similar to what Josh could do for us in that 9 position. I think they're both different players to an extent where I think I don't think Ante is as clever kind of with his movements to an extent, really. And I think that's definitely going to try and hinder us, really. So I think it's more so with Ante. I think it's trying to get him into better positions where he can strike the ball with his left foot because he's got a hell of a shot on him. And I think we saw that in the games against Blackburn in particular as well, really. So I definitely think if we are to play with this 3-back shape and use Ante as at 9, then I think Man is going to have to be very creative with that. I just don't think Ante has that main presence, which I think Sarge gives you, really. So, yeah, it'd be very interesting to see, obviously, how that goes as well. But it just generally does feel like, for me as well, we've signed so many players who could play different roles, but it does feel like at times, to me especially, like we actually just lack some specialists as well. Like it feels like if we had some players that could play just one position to a very, very good level, then I think that's absolutely fine as well. But it just feels like we tried to be too clever, really, and we tried to cover for about 2 or 3 different positions. Whereas I feel like, should we actually be buying quality over quantity? So look, I would tell whether that actually becomes apparent or not. But I'm just very interested to see kind of where we would go if Sargent is to leave.
And just to come back in on your Sargent point there, I think we have to have faith in the recruitment. I think it's sort of very similar to the Borja Sainz transfer and what I was saying around the time that deal was confirmed. If you said, Will, you've been following Norwich since 2008, and in that time, it was only the one season where Norwich got relegated to League One that you could argue we hadn't had one of, if not the best strikers in the league, whether that's Grant Holt, Cameron Jerome, Timu Pukki, or Josh Sargent. Right? They've all followed each other, and that's good recruitment, finding all of those players. So once again, these players will leave, even though we've got more money, because ultimately that is the Norwich model. But it's worked for us. And we will find those players who will then score the goals, and we will find those wide players who will excite us again. It's the circle of life in terms of Norwich City. So, especially now with the Athanasios, if Sargent was to go as well, I have every faith that they could find someone, not necessarily as good as Sargent, but someone who could get you into double figures, and then maybe a playmaker who could create even more goals as well.
Yeah, so just touching on a point that you raised, Will, in terms of requiring sort of players with specialties, I sort of noticed in the first half when we got a couple of very decent free kicks in some promising positions. Jacob Wright, bless him, stepped up and tried to take one straight into the goalkeeper's gloves. And then Emmanuel Forson tried to take one, bless him, straight into the Barclay. When our specialist free kick taker, Marcelino Nunez, came on, that was one of the worst free kicks I've ever seen in my life. But just to sort of go on that point in terms of some of the rumours that have been surrounding Marcelino and his impending move away this summer. Obviously, we'd love to keep Sargent. He's a fantastic asset, but I think a lot of fans consigned ourselves to him going. I think it's pretty much the same for Nunez, but also one of almost he's sort of replaceable. If we get rid of Nunez, is that a move to kind of then go back into the market, or do you think the midfielders that we have would be good enough to fill his void? And do you think any of them will be as good as free kicks as him?
I think ultimately, out of the two players you've mentioned, Nunez is probably the only one we could lose and not necessarily go into the market for. Because if you look at it, Kenny McLean is the club captain. And yes, I know he's injured, but he's been the main stalwart over the past 5-6 years, really, in this Norwich City side. So it'll be difficult to dislodge Kenny. You've then got players like Topic and Wright. Wright, yes, he's just signed for the club, really. Well, he's been here since January, been here permanent since the summer. But his ceiling is so high, and already he's getting astronomical praise, and rightly so. I think he's a phenomenal footballer. Then you've got Mirko Topic, who, as a Canary-Call contributor said, basically looks like a bouncer, and from what I saw, he looked all right as well. So you've got three midfielders there who have all either come to the club expecting to play games, or who are club stalwarts like Kenny McLean, who again are anchors and who we're relying on. So it might be difficult for Marcelino Nunez to get into that team. Then looking further afield, is he a good attacking option? Well, I personally think he's better than Forson in those forward positions. But even then, even if you take Forson out of the equation, you've got Sargent, who's going to be a regular starter, either as the sole number 9 if Sargent leaves, or out on one of the wings. And then you've got Viscorin, who I think they probably see as a number 10. So again, Marcelino Nunez could actually struggle to get into the side. So if the club have an offer there from Trabzonspor or whoever, and they deem it's acceptable, they have to take it, surely. I think they'd be foolish not to.
Yeah, I think Henry's spot on there for me personally. I think what you also said, Henry, as well, kind of about that CDM core, if you will, of Topic, Wright and McLean. I think those guys will probably be the kind of guys that play the most this season. So then obviously you will look to the attacking midfield, and you, as I was saying earlier, really, it doesn't feel like we have that specialist number 10 in there in the squad at the minute. Obviously you've got the likes of Schwartau, Force and Sargent who can play there. But then again, they aren't kind of specialists in that role either, really. So I think although Nunez definitely adds quality to that midfield, is great. Obviously on the ball, he's fantastic. But I think for him as well, I think he probably would probably benefit from going elsewhere. Really, I just think maybe his time at Norwich has probably come to an end. To be honest with you, and I think that was telling for me, especially towards the end of JHT's tenure. It was a really bizarre case study actually, because actually I think probably when Wagner obviously was at the club, I think probably from the East Anglia Derby game from Nunes, probably that until maybe about 12 months, I thought it was very, very good for us. But he had a couple of injuries, and then it just feels like he's kind of like career at Norwich has kind of maybe stalled a little bit, really. So that's my kind of overall thoughts on that, really, to be honest with you. He's a player almost where, yes, of course it makes us stronger, but I don't know whether he'll play as regularly as maybe he wants to. So look, we'll see what happens. But as I said, I'm with Henry. I'll happy take a fee for him.
And again, don't think that I'm comparing Marcelino Nunez to some of the greats this country has produced, because I'm not. But in a way, it sort of reminds me of the England golden generation, where you're trying to cram Scholes and Beckham and Lampard and Gerrard into the team just to have those names in the team. It feels like Marcelino Nunez could maybe be that person this season who you'd cram into the team because he's Marcelino Nunez. Like, if you look, like I was saying with Topic, he's come to be a first teamer. So is Jacob Wright. He's seen as potential next Norwich City captain. So, of course, he's going to play. And Kenny McLean as well. You're not dislodging. So, again, playing Marcelino Nunez would be for the sake of playing Marcelino Nunez, which could, have overwhelmingly positive success because he is a great player, but it could also detract from the team as well, sort of similar to that England golden generation side. So yeah, not necessarily comparing him to those great players, but yeah, it does seem a little bit similar. So if there was an acceptable offer there, I'd definitely accept it.
Yeah, well, he's certainly not, a better passer than Jacob Wright. He's not more of a stalwart than Kenny McLean. He's definitely not stronger than Topic. I think we can say that for a fact. I mean, I might be wrong. I'd be interested to see like a little, weightlifting competition between the two. That would be quite funny. But again, where does he fit in that midfield? Probably on the substitutes bench. But I mean, yeah, just to kind of circle back to the Millwall result, I think what my final thought, my final comment on it is that it probably wasn't as bad as Oxford away. There's at least that. And obviously in that game, we started with Grant Hanley in defence. And, to look at that and think, wow, we started, that league season with Hanley in defence. You look at the team that started at Oxford from where it is now, there are a huge amount of changes. And you'd obviously say, going through this season, there's going to be even more as the season develops. So obviously we've got Portsmouth away on the weekend. Which positions and which areas would you like to see changes in kind of who starts? Because obviously opening game, it's a bit of a tester just to see who is up to scratch, who's on the pace. Could we see Eurosec feature finally? Chris Gordon, is he going to get that fantastic start? Because again, I thought his cameo was really impressive. Makama's cameo was in glimpses very promising. Obviously there's question marks over Jack Stacey and poor little Kellen sat on the bench. Does he deserve a start over Stacey? What were the kind of glaring flaws in that Millwall starting 11, and what would you tweak if you were Liam Manning in Portsmouth?
Well, first of all, like I was saying about the positional changes first, no matter what you think of Jacob Murphy, I thought he tore us apart at Carrow Road last season. So maybe I would bring in Callum Fisher just to... Josh Murphy, yes, of course. Yes, Josh Murphy, that was it. I thought he tore us apart at Carrow Road last season. So I'd bring in Callum Fisher just for that physical presence, because he loves the tackle. So yeah, maybe he can leave a few on Josh Murphy if he was to start. Who knows? And like we said, Visgarden as well. I think he looked quite promising in the short cameo he did make. So especially now that we know Amankwa Forson's out, he's going to miss the Watford game, but he'll probably miss the Portsmouth game as well. It'd be the perfect opportunity to get him in or to get Diallo in.
Yeah, I think Henry's been copying my homework because I would have said the exact same, to be honest with you. I think Kellen Fisher has to play. I just think he's a much better footballer. He's a much better player, to what Jack Stacey is, really. The way how he could add so much impact to us defensively, but also on attacking on the ball as well. I think his attacking output is definitely improving. When he plays a bit more vertical, I think that's always been there with Kellen. I just think obviously I think it can be enhanced, but definitely improving as well. But I think more so as well. I think when you play Kellen Fisher there, I think it'll probably make Medic a bit better player as well, really. So I think that's definitely something to consider as well. But yeah, I just think how we're going to beat Portsmouth is that we're going to have to be very, very solid first of all. But I think we need players who will offer us maybe a point of difference, kind of very, very kind of players on the counter attack who could be very effective for us. And I'm thinking like Diallo and Kiska in there, so someone that can kind of break the game open for us. I think as well is going to be very important. As I still think on the ball, especially deep areas, I think we are quite. I think we are still quite nervy in that kind of phase of the game at the minute. So I can maybe see us playing a bit more direct. Trying to bring Sargent into the game a bit more as well. So I think if we could try and get Kvisgarten and either Sargent into the game a bit more as well, then I think that's probably going to be a very, very good way how we're going to try and beat Portsmouth. I just think we need players who are willing to want the ball in those pockets of space in the attacking midfield positions. And I think Kvisgarten, I think, offers you that. And I think he's definitely a live wire as well. I think he's going to offer us some great strength. So I think that's what I would do for the game against Portsmouth. And obviously, as well, we have got Watford in the cup as well. So I'd expect that probably to be a bit mix and match as well. I wonder if he will see the kind of advantage maybe of playing the same back three just so they can try and improve their kind of interactions between each other. Look, we'll see what happens there. But I think generally there's some players there that have to get minutes. And I think Kvisgarten and Diallo are two great examples.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, I've got 2 away games this week. I won't tell you what my away record is. I know Will's clapping me. I'm actually leaving the house. It's amazing. Yeah, not that I'm a bad omen, but yeah, I think I've only seen Norwich win, I think, 1 league game away from home. Which yeah, I have been to quite a few away games, so it does yeah. The stats are all there for you. But before we conclude, we will do a classic quickfire hot takes on the podcast. This time I've sort of spiced it up a little bit. And it's obviously quite easy to do a quickfire hot take when it's about predicting the upcoming season. So here are some categories that I want you to give me a quickfire answer on. I don't want any deliberation or explanation. I just want bang answer. How many have I got? I've actually got 6 this time. I don't know why 6. It's either 5 or 10 usually, but I've gone for 6. So why not? Question 1. Will Sargent stay?
No.
Yes and no. He'll leave in January.
Okay. Who will finish the season as top goal scorer?
Kvisgarten.
Ante Cianats.
Okay. Should I probably answer that? I should probably answer these. Will Sargent stay? Yes, I think he will. Yeah, I'll clip up myself. And top goal scorer? Cianats. Sure, why not? I mean, my predictions are famously awful. I said Abu Kamara would be our player of the season, and then he left. Don't listen to me at all. Breakthrough young player. Come on, William. This is right up your street.
Well, is it academy related, or you want to like just on that's a young player? If you get me.
yeah, there are young players in the academy and young players in the team. So just breakthrough young player.
Oh, okay. I can't really go for Lucy Mahuva again, can I?
No, he's already had a breakthrough. You can't have another one.
Why not? I'm going to go for Makama, actually.
Yeah, I was going to go for Lucy and Mahovo, but yeah, I'm not going to now. Probably, yeah, Makama as well.
Elliot Miles. Who knows? Maybe. Or maybe he'll get sent out on loan to Accrington and this prediction will be stupid. Most impactful signing. Who will have been the most impactful signing of this window when we reflect on it at the end of the season?
If you asked me last week, I'd have probably said Harry Darling, but I'm going to go for Topic now.
Harry Darling, still.
Chris Gordon. I like him. He's got curly hair. But players with curly hair are famously good. Who will have been the most improved player?
Ooh.
Jose Cordova.
I'm going to be a bit cheeky here, and I'm going to interpret this question as more refined, and I'm going to go for Oscar Schwartau.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Liam Gibbs. This is the year of the Liam. Manning, Gibbs. The two of them are going to be like butter and toast.
Great reasoning, Jack. That's why I pay the big bucks, buddy.
Yeah.
I love toast. You know me. I love toast. And finally, this is again quite a vague one and quite a nasty one. Most overhyped player.
Just because I think there'll be lots of changes from now until the end of the season, and I think that position is still really up for grabs. Jeffrey Schlupp.
Oh, I'm going to say Big Vlad.
Has he got hype though?
Well, I think he's got more excitement.
Okay.
I personally think the goalie's got more hype than Jeffrey Schlupp. Personally, I think he's put more excitement than Jeffrey Schlupp has.
I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to say Diallo. I think Irankunda for Watford is probably going to have a much better season, and I think it will take more, than half a season for him to warm up in English football. So yeah, those are my 6. Some fantastic prediction, boys. I will remember all of these and bookmark them for the end of the season. But of course, who do you think will be the top goal scorer? Do you think that Sargent will stay? Please put them down in the comments if you've been watching for this long. Obviously, remember to like and subscribe. Obviously, we're going to have much more content and many more podcasts as the season goes on. Only 45 games to go, lads. We're nearly there. Anyway, let's not talk about ships sailing or anything marine based. Let's keep it on land. Let's keep it real. Let's keep our heads. It's only one loss. It can't get much worse, can it?
Oh, it can.
This has been the MyFootballWriter podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.